the Canberra Weekender, Tech Talk with Alex Zaharov-Reutt.
Hello, Alex.
Good morning, Tatjana.
Hello. You sound very cheerful.
I'm always cheerful. It's time for Tech Talk.
That's right. If anyone has a question for you, 6255 1206. But we do have a guest to start the show off today. Well, Samsung has identified key tech trends predicted to take Aussie homes to new heights by 2029, which is not that far away. And we are joined by a futurist, Steve Sammartino. Hi there, Steve.
Good morning. How are we?
Good, thank you. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolute pleasure.
You know, the report will predict changes in the way that Australians will live, work and socialise at home in the future, and the pivotal role that artificial intelligence and technology capabilities will play. So tell us a bit about the report.
Yeah, so we focused on 5 key areas, and they all have an overlap. And what's so interesting about it is that artificial intelligence, large language models, and the ability for devices to talk to each other is really the fulcrum. The 5 areas were ambient AI, and that's really AI that's recessive. It's there when you need it, but it's not in your face like we are now with our devices sort of stealing our attention. It's almost like electricity. It's just in the walls. It's there when you need it. It anticipates your needs. So there was ambient AI. The other one was the rolling lounge room, and you can guess what that is. That's the car. The third one was soft robotics, and that's the idea that robots are going to enter a phase where they're not industrial, scary Terminator-style robots, but robots which have soft human-based skills and also soft exoskeletons, and they become our butlers around the house. The fourth was energy management, and this is the idea that, you know, buildings should equal power plant, and there should be a symbiosis between our cars, our rolling lounge rooms, and our houses, exchanging energy as and when they're needed, generating and storing, and an all-electric future, and AI helping manage that energy. And the fifth one was really a little bit more futuristic, and it's the idea of transparent screens and TVs. TVs that are like glass and you can see through them, and they have heads-up displays, which Samsung released one in the CES early this year in January. And the idea that, you know, in the long run, our windows will essentially be generating electricity, storing electricity, and have access to the web, and all the walls around us will be screens, web-enabled and create their own energy.
Can I ask, Steve, and sorry to be a bummer because there's so many great ideas here, but I do wonder, and in the news today we're hearing that, you know, a lot of universities are now, like, you know, slowly releasing details on how many students are cheating using AI, and obviously it's not always used for good. So we're, I guess, living in an era where we've got this development of technology so fast and we're not necessarily keeping up in terms of the way we legislate that. And what do you think Samsung's role is in keeping that sort of above board as well?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I just want to point out that with all technologies, there's positive and negative externalities, right? That always happens. Let's go back to our very first technology, the knife, right? The first one. It can put peanut butter on your toast in the morning, or it can commit a homicide. All technologies, it's really the end user behind it and how it's used. And I think that, you know, companies like Samsung are pretty responsible when it comes to protecting people's privacy and data. And that's a little bit what this is about. It's about using technology for good, for it being something that has a symbiosis in our homes. And in terms of the cheating one, I mean, that's a really interesting question. You know, large language models. A lot of people say, well, if we can have a large language model that can create an essay, why would kids need to use it and they can just cheat? Well, here's the thing. What we need to do is we need to change the education systems. I'll give you a really quick example. At Sydney University, medical students, first-year students, one of their first subjects is modern medical issues. And what the lecturer did there was say, get a large language model to write an essay on your favourite modern medical issue, and then I want you to critique what it comes back with, go back to it and ask it to do another version, and then get it to critique it again, and then submit your version, and what your job was to mark the essay that the large language model did. Now, that is a very clever way of rising above. And we shouldn't really be looking to the students, to the teachers, to adapt how we teach someone. And so the idea there is we need to know what good looks like. And so you work with and above the technology so that it's working for us and we still understand its outputs.
Yeah, because I think that there's something I'm always saying to Alex on this segment is I lament the idea of a lack of critical thinking. So it is very Meta and great that they applied the concept of critical thinking to unpack AI. That is clever.
Yeah, it is. And that's always been the case, right, is that critical thinking is actually going to be needed more in a world where we've got artificial intelligence, because what you don't want to do is just accept what it gives you. Right? You need to be able to compare, contrast, understand the outputs, and it really is the same as we've always had with technology. We just need to rise one layer above what the technology does for us, and that's an art form. And what that takes is us looking at our infrastructure in work context, in education context, in societal context, so that we are still maintaining the human level of learning, but also we have the final gatekeeper needs to be a human.
Yeah, there's this concept of contestable AI. AI cannot be this black box where there's no ability to get an explanation from AI as to why it made the decision that it did. And of course, as I said, contestable AI, we can say, well, that's not something that I want to go down that path. I'm very happy for your input. I mean, the whole idea of AI is it's a co-pilot. Technology has always been a helper to humanity, and we are the ones who are sort of in charge and in control. And I mean, one of the things that you talk about in the report is robotics, and there's been this development from a company called Figure One, which has a very interesting looking robot like the ones from the iRobot movie, or similar to the ones that Tesla had with the Optimus robot. And this is actually linked in with OpenAI. And so there's a 2.5 minute video that I'll post to my site later on. And someone's asking this robot to do things, hand over an apple, stack dishes into a little drying rack. And it's incredible to see that the robot is understanding. It can even critique itself on how good of a job it did.
Yeah, and that's really the evolution of robotics. And one of the things here, in relation to this humanity side of robots, is that up until now, with ambient AI and large language models, what we've had is robotics was the confine of the few who could code, right? So nerds like me who can, write code for computers. But now what we've got is, because software and AI can speak our language, whatever your preferred language is, the modern ethic is going to be you will show a robot physically with your own dexterity on what to do, and you will speak to it to train it. And what that does is that it democratizes the technology. So we essentially will train robots in the same way that we train dogs. And our robots that we have in our homes will eventually, they'll have our culture, our personality. You'll have your own robot that you've trained so that it understands your needs, it anticipates them, it interacts with you, and it has soft human skills. And dexterous robots that have the ability to do things that are human-like, is going to be a really, really big game changer. But the biggest part of the game-changing element is exactly what you've said, Alex, is the ability to communicate in human language to train the robot.
Yeah, Tatjana has a question, but I just wanted to point out that the age of us interacting with technology like it's another person and talking to it and asking it and guiding it and saying, well, look, I'd like you to do it in this way. This age has long been predicted by sci-fi, but we're now entering this age, which is fantastic. I mean, I've got relatives who say, well, how am I supposed to know how to set up the printer and tap all these buttons to put in the Wi-Fi? And it's like, look, in the not too distant future, you'll just talk to your technology and it will do what you want it to do. And you won't have to learn any complicated commands. Even coding is something that learn to code. Well, AI can now code quite well, and it's only going to get better. But Tatjana, what did you want to ask?
Oh, Steve, I was just going to say, unfortunately, we're fast running out of time, and I hope I'm not lumping you with too big a question. But I am curious. You've touched on so many amazing technologies, and Alex often talks about your products on the show as well. But just with all of that, and with just the emergence of it so quickly too, in terms of accessibility and affordability, I mean, is this something that, you imagine, like, will there be some, I wonder sometimes in the future, like, do we rent these things? Do we lease them? Like, how do we keep up? Because, there's so much.
I just want to note that Steve Sammartino is not a Samsung employee. He's Australia's leading futurist. But sorry, go on, Steve.
But Samsung products, sorry.
Yeah.
But I am fascinated in how people are going to be able to afford to keep up with all of this stuff.
Great question. So, as you know, technology has rapidly declining costs and improving capabilities every 12 years. Every 12 months there's the Moore's Law impact. And let's just take a big flat screen TV as an example. 15 years ago, flat screen TV, which is not even 10% as good as the ones you can get today, were $20,000. You can get a similar TV which is better for $1,000. This technology is always getting cheaper, and you'll never ever get a tech revolution unless it's democratized and affordable. Yeah. As per the smartphone. I mean, a smartphone doesn't cost more than a Nokia brick. because it's still $50 a month when you go and you sign up to it, right? And you've got a free supercomputer attached. So the answer to that question is the evidence is already there. This technology is getting cheaper and more powerful. And not only is it going to be accessible and affordable, now all of a sudden, no matter where you are on the tech learning curve, if you can talk, you can do it.
Now, look, we're going to have a much longer discussion, nearly an hour's long discussion tonight on my TV show. I haven't got the details on my
plug, Alex.
on my website, techadvice.live yet. But you can actually, I will have an article where you can read this report in full at my website, and you'll get details at 7 p.m. tonight, between 7 and 8 p.m. You'll be able to watch Steve and myself discussing the report and technology in much greater detail. So, Steve, thank you very much for joining us this morning, and thank you for joining me tonight.
Absolute pleasure. Looking forward to tonight as well.
Thanks, Steve. Really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a futurist, Steve Sammartino, talking there about key technology trends. And as Alex says, there will be more on his TV show tonight, which we will give you the details for later, coming back soon.
Join us in the Weekender on 6255 1206. The Canberra Weekender on 2CC.
Great to be with you. I'm Tatjana Clancy, joined by our tech guru, Alex Zaharov-Reutt, editor of TechAdvice.live. Let's give a plug, though, before we start on your show tonight, if people are listening.
Sure, yes. If you go to techadvice.live, the details are not there yet, but you can see episodes of previous shows that were there, and the website where you can go to watch is there. 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. I'll be talking to Steve in more detail about the 5 trends and just about technology in general. And if you don't get a chance to watch, the show is available on demand afterwards, but all the details will be at techadvice.live.
Excellent. No, Steve was definitely a very interesting guest. Now, Apple issuing warnings about not to sleep with your iPhone charging on your bed. What's this about?
Yes, now they've warned about this before, but it's been in the news this week because a US TikTok creator brought it up, and of course it's on TikTok, so people are talking about it in various newspapers. But Apple is warning, don't sleep on the charging cable or connector if you have the phone in bed. And the problem is that you might put it somewhere and it's not next to you, but when you wake up, when you're asleep, you can roll onto your phone, you can roll onto the cables, and the cables can heat up. They can warm up, and then they can cause, minor burns. So Apple is saying don't just leave the phone in the bed, put it on the bedside table, because also the phone needs ventilation. They're saying here, use common sense to avoid situations where your skin is in contact with the device, its power adapter or wireless charger. And they're saying, it shouldn't be under a blanket, a pillow, or your body when it's connected to a power source. And I've had the phone in bed, just it's there, and when I wake up in the morning, I've discovered that somehow it's migrated underneath the pillow. And of course, the phone is not off when the screen's off. It's getting updates, getting data, and that's all traveling through your head, whether it's Wi-Fi or 4G signals.
That's pretty scary.
So, they're just warning you, if you're going to have the phone, make sure that before the end of the bed, stick it on the bedside table. And there are these actual attachments you can buy that you can put onto the bed head and have the phone or the tablet above your head. I've heard of stories of people where they were, for some reason, holding the phone above their head. They sort of half fell asleep and then they dropped the phone onto their face, which is a bit of a rude wake-up call.
Yeah.
So be careful with technology in your bed. It can be unsafe.
Just jumping to our hearing aid story about a hearing aid feature coming with a certain update.
Yes, now iPhones already and AirPods have already been hearing aid-like for some years. In 2018, there was iOS 12, and there was a live listen feature. So if you had AirPods, any of the different models, you could set up something so that the microphone at the bottom of your iPhone could pipe the sound directly to your hearing aid. And so then people could put the phone in the middle of a table or next to a person or next to a TV and get that sound piped straight to their ears, which is pretty cool. Then in 2021, if you had the AirPods Pro 2, there was something called Conversation Boost Mode, which you set up in accessibility. If you've got an iPhone, an AirPods Pro 2, and you've got mild hearing loss, this is actually very cool because when you set it up, and it only takes 5 minutes to set up, when you're at a situation like you're in a cafe or you're talking to somebody, the AirPods will pick up on that person's voice and again amplify just that voice straight to your ears. Now, later this year, in about 12 weeks' time, we'll have Worldwide Developer Conference 2024, the annual developer shindig that Apple puts on, and they'll be launching iOS 18. And it will
Is this another Vegas junket for you, Alex?
No, unfortunately not. No. I wish it was, but it would be Cupertino in Apple's headquarters. But anybody can watch it online free of charge. And if you're a developer, it's a ballot to go. It's super exciting to go, and hard to get there. So the short version is that not only will they launch all this AI stuff, but the reports are saying that Apple will make AirPods even more like hearing aids. And Apple AirPods are about 1/10 of the cost of hearing aids. Now, yes, you do have to have like a $1,000 phone to go with your, $200, $300, $400 AirPods, but good hearing aids, are $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000. So if Apple can make hearing aids, they can add that capability into AirPods and make it even more like hearing aids. It just means that you don't have to have multiple devices. You can just have the AirPods in, and off you go. So look, we'll talk more about that later in the year when they announce it. But normally when it's reported by Bloomberg or these organizations, it's like a leak from the company to say that this is coming. And I know people who've got hearing aids that they use them as AirPods effectively, and they can pipe the sound from their phones. But again, they're quite expensive, and it'll be good to see this feature pop up.
I've got a good hearing aid story. I'm just name dropping now, but I was lucky enough to interview Carrie Fisher.
Oh, yes.
A few years before she passed, and she told a very great story about her late father, Eddie Fisher, how he accidentally swallowed his hearing aids thinking they were just pills that he was going to take.
Yep.
And they just couldn't understand how he could do it because they had like feelers on them because, technology's changed, but they were quite big and massive and not pill-like at all. And, it was quite amazing. But anyway, he managed to swallow them and think that he was going to...
Incredible.
Thought he was taking a painkiller. So
well, that probably would have caused him some pain. I mean, it's like the people who have bottles of eye drops, and somehow, for some reason, next to the bottles of eye drops, they've put bottles of superglue, and then they accidentally put superglue in their eyes. I mean, I've heard the stories of this, and it's like, why would you have superglue anywhere near your eye drops?
It's very weird. Now, 3 minutes the news, so not a lot of time, but there's something that's making me want to adjust my posture is a warning from chiropractors that young people are developing curved spines with just currently constantly hunched over their phone.
Yes, well, this is where they're looking at TikTok or Instagram or any of these different programs where there's non-stop videos, and so they're hunched over, and X-rays are showing that they're getting spines of much older people at teenage years, and also because they're always hunched over, they're even getting a horn-like growth at the back of their skulls, which is again shown on these X-rays. And so you've basically got to make sure that you up your posture. I mean, look at your kids, look at your grandkids, look at yourself. Make sure you're not always hunched over a phone. You can attach a mouse to your iPhone or your Android or your tablet, and hold the phone up, don't be hunched over it. And it's the same if you're hunched over your laptop. Maintain good posture. There are exercises you can do. One of them is like the snow angel exercise, but your back is to a wall and you're moving your arms up and down, and if you do that sort of 15 or 20 times in the morning, then that's supposed to stretch the muscles and avoid this hunching over feature. But look it up online on exercises to not be hunched over and protect your spine.
And do we have time to announce Samsung's mid-range phones that are affordable?
They just launched the A55 and the A35. One is $699. The A35 is $549. These are the mid-range phones that are much better and faster than the $200-$300 phones you find at the cigarette counter at the supermarkets. If you can avoid those, if you're just doing a single task, just using maps, just using email, they're okay. But if you're trying to do several things at the same time, you notice that they're very slow. These ones have 6.6-inch screens. These are more premium. They cost more, but they'll be quite inexpensive to buy on a 12 or 24-month plan, and they'll be in stores from March the 25th. And obviously they don't have the AI features that the $1,000, $2,000 plus S series, the flagship S24 series have. But for everyday users who just want a phone under $1,000 and closer to $500, these are an excellent option. And there's lots of choice out there, but Samsung always makes good phones, and these are worth checking out.
Well, it is good to hear that some of that stuff is becoming more affordable as well.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because it's funny, like in the 80s, I remember like CD players were so expensive, and then
it's hard to buy one.
Well, I've still got one.
Yeah.
And a tape player and a VCR. It's all happening at my house.
Record player as well?
Yeah, I've got two record players.
Retro.
Yeah, no. Well, this is so funny though when people do that and go, "Oh, you're just being cool." It's like I just never stopped. That's the thing. Like,
it's the same ones I had 20 years ago.
If you do the same thing for long enough, it just comes back in style. Like, I still dress like I'm 17. I don't care. Alex, always a pleasure. Thank you. And people can head to your website tonight.
TechAdvice.life. Yeah, in a couple of hours I'll have all the details of the TV show. And again, if you miss it, you can come to my site later on and watch that whole interview with Steve Sammartino.
Fantastic. And we will catch you again next week.
Talk to you then.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Fantastic. That is Alex Zaharov-Reutt. And if you want to check out what he gets up to, TechAdvice.live is the place, because there's sometimes many stories that we don't get a chance to cover. And he has all sorts of things. Keynote speeches, a go-go. It's all over the shop. Thanks so much, Alex. He'll be back with us next week. Coming up plenty before midday, including Neil Hermes, our bird guru. Stick around.